Welcome to the Get Out Swim podcast, where we discuss all aspects of competitive swimming. I'm your host, Seamus T. Quinn, and I'm a former Division I swimmer and current college and age group swim coach. Today, I'm joined by head coach of Wesleyan University men's and women's swimming and diving, Vanessa Williamson. Vanessa enters her first season at Wesleyan, marking the beginning of a new chapter for the Cardinals. Before arriving in Connecticut, Vanessa spent the last 11 years coaching at her alma mater and fellow NESCAC school, Bates College. In her 11 seasons with the Bobcats, Vanessa helped transform the program into an annual contender at both the NESCAC and National level. Vanessa helped mentor numerous NESCAC Individual Champions, top 5 finishing conference teams, and a staggering total of 231 All-Americans. At the national level, Bates fielded swimmers at NCAA Division III Championships 8 times under Vanessa, and the Bobcats finished top 20 in all 8 appearances. A decorated swimmer in her own right, Vanessa is one of the best to ever swim at Bates, as she totaled 8 All-American honors in her swimming career, was a 2-time NCAA runner-up in the 200 butterfly, and a 3-time NESCAC champion. In our conversation, Vanessa talks about growing up swimming in her home state of Maine, her post-college experience of moving across the country to train under one of the best minds in all of swimming, Coach Dave Salo, and while finding growth and success there, ultimately deciding to hang up the goggles and pursue a career in coaching. Vanessa discusses some of her early learning experiences as a coach, highlights some of her favorite memories at Bates, and shares her vision of cultivating a positive team culture and climbing the NESCAC ranks for her Wesleyan Cardinals. So without further ado, enjoy my conversation with Vanessa Williamson. Welcome to another episode of the Get Out Swim podcast. I'm your host, Seamus T. Quinn, and today I'm joined by Wesleyan's newest head swimming and diving coach, Vanessa Williamson. Vanessa,
Hello.
Thanks for joining.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is awesome. I'm super excited. So for those who are listening, I spent the last 2 years at Wesleyan as a graduate assistant coach there. So Wesleyan definitely holds a special place in my heart, and I am super excited to just learn more about Wesleyan's newest head coach, Vanessa, and just share some insight into the program that is going to develop under her. So yeah, this is exciting for me too.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll start. I just want to know, tell us about your background in the sport of swimming. Where you grew up, what kind of led you into the sport of swimming, and then eventually how you got into coaching.
Sure. So grew up in Maine and started competitive swimming when I was 10 because a best friend that I had was on a swim team. So naturally, you want to be around your friends, and they encouraged me and my parents to try out the swim team. Really enjoyed it. Still stayed involved in soccer and did tennis in high school too. But swimming started to become a passion of mine. And I made the varsity soccer team as a sophomore in high school. And then junior year, I didn't make the varsity team. So then I was like, all right, I'm just going to swim and get ready for my high school swim season. And then I feel like that's when I kind of developed into an athlete and thought this could be something that I could do in college, and started kind of representing Maine at the US league level, and getting some, I think I had the 200 fly long course state record for a little bit when I was in high school during that time. But yeah, and then started looking at colleges, and my dad was a professor at Bates. And so I really grew up on the Bates campus. I remember being young and even going in the men's locker room because he would take me to go swim there. And I was, too young to be in the women's locker room by myself, but young enough where I could go in the men's room, as well as attending concerts and, the dance, theater majors performances that they had on campus. And it still wasn't a place that I saw myself being at or wanting to go so close to home for a college. And, applied multiple places, didn't really have an idea of what I wanted to study. Applied mostly D3 to schools, and that was all regular decision. Saw where I got in. I only did one overnight visit. I mean, this was back in the early 2000s. And then kind of decided that I was going to attend Bates almost at like the last minute. The coach at the time recruited me pretty hard. I chatted with two other coaches that actually were alums of Bates, the cross country ski coach, Becky Woods, and Paul Gasingay, the tennis coach. And so I was asking them like, hey, how was it being at a college so close to home? Did you enjoy your experience? And of course they did. They were still, they were coaching there. So that kind of showed a lot that, yeah, they wanted to stay and give back and be a part of the community as, a staff member. But then, so swam at Bates for 4 years. I actually, my senior year, got into coaching because a local private high school needed a coach. And so there were about 8 athletes, and I would work with them a couple times a week. And when I graduated, I actually didn't feel like I was done with my swimming career. And so my club coach at the time recommended a coach out in Southern California named Dave Salo, who coached the Irvine Nova Aquatics and then went on and coached University of Southern California. And now is just coaching professionals. And I just picked up everything after I graduated in 2005 and moved out to California. Didn't know anybody. I had a cousin that lived not too far away, but my parents were supporting me and wanted me to reach my dream goal of making Olympic trials. And this was the way to do it, apparently. So swam out there, learned a ton, enjoyed my experience, although, I did feel a little bit like an outcast because I was training in a small group of athletes that either had already made Olympic trial cuts or were former Olympians. And little old me from Division III, there actually was one other girl that trained there that went to Williams College, Lindsay Payne, who she might actually still have some breaststroke NESCAC records. She was out there training too. And so when I first saw her, I recognized her and I was like, wait. And then, we kind of like, hey, you went to Bates, you went to Williams. So that was kind of fun. But she was very successful in the breaststroke events. So still, I kind of felt like, am I a little out of my league here? But I wanted to give it a shot and did that from 2005 till about 2008 and got into coaching while I was out there. So I had decided when I didn't make the trials cut that I was done. And I made this decision because I was liking the dryland workouts a little bit more than the swim workouts. So I was like, okay, maybe it's time for me to hang it up. I was ready to move on with my life and, eventually start a family and stuff like that. But looking for jobs, I was, always a nanny, a second grade teacher's aide. I saw a position at a middle school for swim coach and all girls middle school. And so I applied for it and got it. And then the head coach for the high school team had to take some time off. So I ended up coaching the high school team in the spring, where the middle school team season was in the fall. And then that coach kind of went other directions, and the athletic director there really enjoyed having me there. So I was coaching middle school and high school team for a couple years and really enjoyed it. So that's kind of like my beginning parts of like swimming and how I got into coaching.
No, it's very, very cool. This is all, I would say new information for me. I don't know much about your background, so I think that's incredibly interesting. One, to just have, your dad as a professor at, the college that you end up going to. And like you said, I think it's uncommon, for people who grow up very close to a college, or even sometimes in their own like home state, to like want to end up going to that school. But it seems like, you made sort of those connections with some of those, the coaches that recruited you at the time, but then also some of those other, I would say, inter-athletic department college coaches, and it seems like it worked out really well for you to then be at Bates and have the success that you did. And when did Coach Peter Casares, who's the current head coach at Bates, when did he become the head coach there? Was that during your time as a swimmer?
No. So I graduated in 2005 and he took over the program in 2007. So there was a little bit of a gap with the coach that I had. He retired, I think, in 2005, 2006, and there was an interim head coach in between when Peter started. So when he took over the program, I immediately reached out to him just as an alum to introduce myself, but also as someone that needed a pool to swim at whenever I was home on breaks, since I was still training. And,
Nice.
Wanted to make that kind of connection. And, we developed a great friendship from there.
That's great. Okay, cool. So then that relationship sparked, after graduating, but like you said, when you needed some place to come back and swim and kind of stay connected with Bates, that's really cool. And then you name dropped, a huge name in the sport of swimming. I had no idea that, you sort of worked under Dave Salo. So when you moved out to California in 2005, at that point, you weren't, I just want to get this right. So you weren't looking to initially coach. You wanted to continue. You didn't feel like your swimming career was wrapped up at that point. You felt like you had more to give. So you went out there with the goal in mind to continue to improve, continue to learn and swim, but then ultimately try and qualify for Olympic trials. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't have anything really set in plan. I just wanted to keep swimming and see how much faster I could get. So I had just kind of like the little side jobs of the nanny or second grade teacher's aide at a school. But I went to Irvine Nova Aquatics, which is a club team. So that was an interesting time because I was a 22-year-old swimming with swimmers that were essentially in high school. And I was pretty much the only postgraduate swimmer on that team at the time when I first arrived. Like when I reached out to Dave, I shared my times with him. And then, he said, yeah, this could work. And when I got out there, I had like not really a tryout, but, I think he wanted to meet me in person, find out what my goals were. Not just to waste his time kind of thing, having another member of his huge kind of program that he was leading. But yeah, so it was me swimming with a lot of high schoolers, which had its challenges. I mean, I became some really good friends with them, but also like I needed to remember, they're 16 to 18 years old. Like I'm 22 now. So, it was just a different kind of training environment that I was used to just coming straight from college, but I got faster. So, it was worth it in many, many ways. But yeah, definitely enjoyed my time there. Learned a ton from Dave, as well as, swimmers I was swimming with, not only Lindsay Payne, but like Jessica Hardy, Amanda Beard, Osma Louie, just a lot of Olympians, which is really cool to be next to.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah. It's just like being a sponge and being able to soak in all of their, different tricks and ways that they engage with swimming. I'm sure that was amazing. And what was like a difference between sort of going from your college program, aside from maybe the age range, but like in terms of the training, if you can remember anything from, Dave's sort of way he trained you and the rest of the swimmers, was there anything that you liked or was like, oh, wow, this is different than what I've done before? Is there anything like that?
Yeah. So when Dave took over University of Southern California's program, there was an established Trojan swim club. So there was a group where I was training with postgraduates, which was much more conducive to me than training with club age group swimmers. Right. And so those practices, it was just pretty much singles one a day. which I wasn't really used to. You think of this grind in swimming where you have to do doubles and you're doing whatever it may be, 8 to 10 workouts a week. And here I was doing one swim workout a week. And I was like, this is not what I'm used to. But, we're older, take a little more time to recover from workout to workout. But then also these workouts were a much higher intensity and we're doing it all year round. So it wasn't the college time frame or even I guess swimming club, you have that time frame of almost all year round. But it was a lot more high intensity speed work and practices. Salo is kind of known for his sprint workouts, and he also developed some really good distance swimmers as well. But there was a lot more pace work than I was used to that I had done in college, and using equipment a lot. So it's kind of funny. I went to a college conference, or it could have been an ASCA convention one year, and Salo was one of the speakers, and he was talking about a practice that he gave where he couldn't quite remember all the details, but he was saying, I think there was a log that was near on deck, and I thought, hey, let's just throw that in there, and the swimmers got to do some vertical kicking, holding this log up over their heads. And, I approached him afterwards and I said, I was there. It was a diving board. And those things are heavy, but there was probably a good 20 of us, but he had us in the water all lined up, and we had to hold this diving board above our head. And then the person in the back had to climb up on it and then run all along the diving board and then jump in. And then you kind of just kept shuttling like that. And I remember just being I was never on the heavier side, but being self-conscious of these are the people I'm surrounded by. I'm going to run as fast as I can on this diving board so they don't feel holy cow, this is really hard to hold out. But yeah, that was one of those crazy things that Salo just, whatever came to his mind, he would just throw out there, and just to see if it worked or not, or maybe to have a good laugh. I don't know.
For his own laugh. Yeah.
Right.
Wow. That's really cool. I've never heard anything like that. That visual of everyone holding, this long diving board and having someone run up across and then jump off is just, that's hysterical to me. I wish there was a video of that. Wow. But yeah, for sure. Dave Salo, he seems like someone who's just known for sort of his creativity and just someone who's always reinventing the wheel and trying new things. So yeah, did you, do you still keep in touch with him, or was he someone who you really felt wow, I'm taking a lot of inspiration from him in terms of just, how he connects with his athletes or how he coaches, that led you, that kind of inspired you in your own coaching, right?
Yeah. So I think if I wanted to, I could reach out to him now, and he'd be more than happy to help me out with any questions that I have. I did work at their swim camps back in 2016, 2015 area. And so we kind of reconnected then. And then when I see him at conferences and stuff, he's come across hundreds and thousands of athletes. So I don't expect him to always just remember me from his, a 3-year time stint. But yeah, I'll throw out my name. And actually one of my former athletes, that just graduated last year from Bates, her parents were on campus at USC, and her dad went to the swim offices and did a name drop on me a couple years ago, and he remembered my name. So I was like, that's cool. But yeah, no, I actually, when I first started coaching the middle school and high school team in California, back in 2008, 2009, I tried to do or give some of the workouts that I had done, and, thought, hey, if I was able to do these, these athletes should be able to do these, and quickly learned that, that's not the case. You can't just pass on what what you've done in the past and expect it to work with a new group of athletes, especially, middle school and high schoolers. So, but no, I definitely learned a ton, and I use a lot of the mentality that Salo had with pace work and speed in there, and just creativity as well. I feel like a lot of my workouts are written with a creative purpose, so it's not always just swimming back and forth. And I took that away from Salo a ton. Like, he always had us doing things that were outside of the box, or made you think while you were doing this set, or make you go to the bottom and then jump up, and then you got to sprint the last 15 yards, whatever it may be. Just making it a little bit different, and I would say less boring that swimming kind of can be. So I definitely took that away from him during my time there. But then, he was great with getting to know the athletes, because it was just a small group of us. And, I think he enjoyed it being postgraduate, like adults, and not having to deal with parents or anything like that. So, and he always welcomed like any visitors. Like, we had athletes from the Asian countries that would come and train over the summer with us for a couple months. And, those coaches would just stand on deck and just listen to Salo and just absorb everything that he was saying. And there were actually some that I think from Japan that didn't know any English. So there was a person there translating everything. And, Salo would try to learn some words as well when they were there. But yeah, there's definitely bits and parts of me as a coach, of everyone that's been in my life, that I've had influence from.
Yeah, no, that's great. I liked what you mentioned about just, the creativity aspect that, you sort of took inspiration from, because, like you said, there's, it's very easy to just swim back and forth across the pool and, do repetitive sets over and over and over again that can bore out a swimmer. And sometimes, sure, we need it, but at the same time, I think it's equally important to show some creativity in there and just, experiment. And I'm sure for him, it's maybe different at the collegiate level, where you're needing to be very planned and organized. And just for your athletes throughout the season, there's times where you can get creative and think of things on the fly. But I'm sure for him, being able to have that accessibility worked really well with, some of the older postgraduate level swimmers. But there are times where you can explore and continue to be creative no matter where you're at in your coaching, kind of arc. So that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then, just throughout your time, your early, kind of coaching years, what were some experiences? And you mentioned a few, like even, giving some practices that you did and maybe expecting them to be able to do it. But then realizing, wait, this is not, sort of a copy and paste thing. I'm working with different, age groups and different levels of athletes. So what were like some early sort of experiences in your coaching time, or some lessons that you learned to help sort of inform your coaching now?
Definitely some failures needed to happen for me to learn. I remember a practice with my high schoolers in California where I think it was April Fool's Day. And, they were all hiding in the locker room. And I just didn't see the joke in it. And, I started like timing when practice was starting until they came out. And I said, okay, it's been 12 minutes. So you guys have 12 25s, no breath underwater. And, looking back on it, I was like, man, that was wrong. I was mean. Not the way to do it. So I'm definitely a lot more laid back now and feel like you got to have fun with this sport. And if the athletes coming to the pool aren't having fun with it, then I'm not doing my job. So that was a big kind of learning moment in the beginning of my coaching career. Also, something that I've learned is you got to get to know your athletes, and not every single one is the same person. Just because I have, Wesleyan Cardinal swimmers does not mean that they're all just looped into one group. So getting to know them, what they do on campus, what they're doing outside of campus, who they are as a person has been really important. And it helps me be able to coach them better. And I also think that builds that kind of respect both ways, where they can get to know me too as a person and who I am and what I go home to and things like that, that I'm not just sitting here in my office all day. Like, I have a life, and, I have a daughter and things like that. So I think it's important for that kind of relationship to happen with my athletes. And I found great success with that at Bates. We had 2 practice times in the afternoon because of the size of the team and the size of the pool. And I got to work with 15 to 20 athletes at a time for 2 hours, and then another 15 to 20 for 2 hours. And I really got to know my athletes really well, and they got to know me. And so that helped. That helped with how I came across as a coach to them. I got to learn, like, all right, this person needs a little bit more authority and me telling them what to do, or this person needs me to just lay off because they have a lot going on in their life right now. And they showed up. So that was really important, that kind of thing. Or like, this person needs a ton of rest during taper time, whereas this one does not. And they need to be doing completely different things. So just kind of like getting to know your athletes like that just has helped me out a lot as a coach. And, I heard one day from our most decorated female swimmer at Bates, Sarah DeHare, where, she had vocalized, I'm not just a swimmer. I'm not just a backstroker. Like, I'm a person. And that kind of opened our eyes of like, yeah, like, they have other things going on in their life, even though they're here for 2 hours at a time for a training session. Like, doesn't mean that I'm just going to yell at them, why aren't you holding your backstroke pace work right now, kind of thing. And there's times where that does need to happen. You need to check in and be like, why aren't you holding these times? And it could be because of something else that's going on or in their mind, or it could be just like, oh yeah, I need to get on this, and what am I doing, kind of thing. But yeah, I think definitely getting to know your athletes has been a big game changer for me as a coach. And I think that happened just kind of along the way. There wasn't like a single time where I think naturally it happens too. Like, I'm more of an educator and people person. I majored in psychology and early education, always having in mind that I wanted to work with people, and really enjoyed like my time as a babysitter back in the day of just, getting to know who you're working with and being engaged with that person and interactive with them. So I think that like definitely just kind of resonated with me naturally. But yeah.
Yeah. No, I like the point about it just kind of coming natural to you, that face-to-face engagement, just human engagement. And yeah, certainly as a coach, you're doing that every day. And I like what you said about just maybe the misconception that as coaches or as managers, really, you can group everyone together in sort of, the same circle or bubble, and kind of give everyone the same set or the same practice and expect them to respond in the same way. Like, we're coaching the team, yes, but we're also, building relationships on an individual basis with each of our swimmers. And I think another point you made, like, I think I would phrase it in the sense where sometimes just being a little more vulnerable as a coach and showing like, hey, I have a family, like I have other interests too, that lets that sort of connection build even more between the swimmers. And then they see, oh, hey, my coach has a life outside of swimming too. It's not all about X's and O's and, reaching a certain, national level qualifying time or meet or even winning. It's not all about that. Like it's also about the bigger picture of life. And, swimming's a life metaphor. That's what my mom always tells me. And I'm like, yeah, it's true. And so that's, that's all just like, I think really, really nice insight.
I think that the athletes need to know that there is a balance, right? Like when they graduate and start work in the real world, like they're going to have to juggle things too. Like they're going to need to understand, like if you're in a relationship with someone, you can't be all in at work and devote all your energy and time in your workforce unless that's what you want. But then, maybe you shouldn't be involved in these other things. So I think it's healthy for them to see like, yeah, I have goals for this program and for my job and for myself. But that's not my entire life. Like I have other things too. And just like you guys, like you're involved in other things and you have other things on your plate, and it's not always just about swimming and diving.
Yep. Yeah. There's going to be a life after swimming. The swimming and diving chapter is over for many of you, and most, I would say, no matter what level you're at, it's going to end at some point. And so, yeah, I think it's definitely transferable, like skills to be able to recognize that. Well, so I wanted to ask you, post your time in California, what led you to want to move back to the East Coast and, pursue college coaching at your alma mater at Bates, back where you grew up? What led you to make that decision?
Yeah. So when Peter Casares took the head coaching job in 2007, like I said, I reached out, introduced myself, recreated a great friendship, stayed in touch. I actually volunteered on 2 of Bates's training trips after my time there, just to help out on deck and kind of give back to the program as well. And while I was coaching out there, I was coaching in a 4-lane pool, 25-yard pool, that was at the high school. And I knew that I couldn't start a club team there. I grew that program to the highest it could in their like league. And so I was kind of looking at like, what's next? And Peter had said, anytime that you want to be on deck with me, I'd love to have you. And it turned out in 2012 that he was kind of looking for an assistant coach. And I had kind of reached the highest level that I could with the team I was working with. I had a daughter then, and, living in Southern California was kind of expensive, and all my family was back on the East Coast. So it kind of made sense. And so, yeah, I just moved back home to Maine and started coaching at Bates.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And was it hard to leave, like, kind of your situation in California, kind of all of the external factors aside, like being from the East Coast and then experiencing a whole different, side of the country? Like, was it hard to leave sort of the California lifestyle, or was it deep inside you like, no, I know I'm going to come back home and that's like kind of like where I belong in a sense?
So, a lot of people go to college to get that experience of like going to a new place and being far from home, right? And I didn't have that experience going to a school that was literally 7 miles and my dad being a professor there. So when I moved out to California, like that was my time to get away. And I enjoyed it. I was in my low 20s, and being in Los Angeles at that time was a lot of fun. But I think having a daughter like grounded me, and I knew that I wanted a family, and, I knew I wanted a house with a yard and that kind of thing. And I knew that wasn't going to be feasible in Southern California. And so I was kind of ready for the next step. So it was hard leaving the friends and connections that I made out there. I was done with the party scene and that kind of thing at that point. And I did really get spoiled with the weather and really enjoyed having it warm and sunny, like almost every day, and being able to do things outside all the time. But knew that I needed something different. And when I actually moved back to Maine, it was only really in my mind that I'd only be there for like 4 or 5 years. When I was in California, I was coaching for 4 years. So I was like, oh, maybe I'll just stay on that kind of trend. And ultimately I was like, I'd like to be in a warm weather place, and knew that California was a little far from my family, really expensive to live there. So I was like, maybe I'll end up down in Florida or in the South somewhere. So I was thinking like, oh, I'll work at Bates for a couple of years, maybe up to 5 years. And then we'll kind of see, and applying and looking at jobs throughout. And eventually it just kind of like year 5 turned into year 6, turned into year 7. And I got really comfortable where I was. And, my second year there, Peter gave me a group all to myself. And so I was with the sprint group for the whole season. And so I felt a lot of responsibility, and just that gave me a sense of like, wow, I'm doing something here, and I had a purpose. And then did that for a couple of years. And then I worked with the endurance group for a couple of years and found a lot of purpose there, and making those athletes faster and enjoying the sport. And then went back to the sprint group. So it was something where I was like really comfortable. And I did keep looking at jobs just to see what was out there and whatnot, but nothing was almost like good enough for me to move. And so 11 years, and then, the Wesleyan position opened up, and it was kind of just time where, all right, I think this is a place that is good enough for me to pack up and try something new and different. I'm ready for this.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. And I want to, go back to kind of the just your 11 seasons at Bates. It seemed like you found success at Bates almost immediately. And according to the head coach at Bates, who you worked with, Peter Casares, he is quoted as saying that Vanessa's first year training that group, which I believe is alluding to the sprint group, correct? So the sprint group led to many successes, and she immediately followed it up her second year as Vanessa not only coached 3 NESCAC champions in the sprint events, but Bates's first ever NESCAC record holder, Logan McGill, in the 50 free. So, talk to me about what allowed you to thrive in your position at Bates and ultimately led to, the team and individuals having just like tremendous success.
So our first year, or my first year at Bates, Peter and I would flip-flop a week after week, where a week I would work with the sprint group, and then the following week I would work with the endurance group. And so I didn't have my own group that first year. So I got to work with all the athletes, and same with Peter. But then we found at the end of the season, or even like throughout the season, I would work with a group, and then he would work with them the following week, or I can't remember if we did it within the week, days after day, but he wouldn't really know what that group did when they were working with me. And so they could have needed a recovery day. They could have needed maybe some more like kicking work, or, you can look on the spreadsheet to see what I gave them, but it's still not really the same. And then I found that out as well with, all of a sudden I'm working with these athletes, but I didn't work with them yesterday. And so I have no idea what kind of shape they're in physically, mentally, anything like that. It was great working with the whole team, but also I didn't really get to know each one individually that well, because I would just keep bouncing back and forth. And so my second year, he said, I want you with the sprint group. And I was like, holy crap, I don't know if I'm ready for that. Like, that's a lot of responsibility. And I was nervous. And he said, hey, I'll take a look at the workouts that you write. If you want me to, we can talk about stuff, but I want you working with a group, and I want to work with a group, and let's just keep it at that. And, thank God he did that, because it helped me develop as a coach. And then also it gave me confidence. And so, I would work with the sprint group, and someone like Logan McGill, who actually we recruited as a breaststroker, she was a 104 breaststroker. she had some back issues. So she did a lot of just dolphin kicking, freestyle swimming, some butterfly swimming mixed in there, but couldn't really do breaststroke kick. And so, watching her in the practices where, like I mentioned before, I would have 15 to 20 at a time that I would work with. And so I got to see her underwaters, and I got to see her technique and her stroke. And I would tell Peter, like, hey, in this meet, let's throw her in the 100 fly or in some, freestyle relays. She can't really do breaststroke right now anyways. And I think in season she went like a 59. And so we're like, all right, in the 100 fly, that's decent. Ended up not doing any breaststroke events her freshman year. NESCACs were here at Wesleyan. And I remember this, her 50 free, she came off that wall and just pulled ahead of everybody. And this is a 50 freestyle. Like, you don't see that often. And Peter was standing on the scorer's table, which isn't that much higher from where the spectating like cement floor is. And when she touched, she went like a 23-2, I think, for the NESCAC record. He just pumped up his arm and like literally hit the cement roof part. And I just like could not believe what she just did. And then she also went like a 56 in the 100 fly. And just speaking of her, she didn't do any breaststroke events until we needed her to senior year, and was still, at NCAA's going a 104 in the breaststroke. But I think the program had so much success because I was able to work with these athletes and get to know them and see like, okay, she's got some good dolphin kicks. And, we saw that with another athlete, with Andrew Hall, where Peter was working with him and he just destroyed every set, and his underwaters were amazing. And we recruited him as a breaststroker, ended up going under 4 minutes in the 400 IM. And, you don't know if you're not watching them in practice and really seeing them, so just really being cognizant when you're on deck of like what these athletes can do, and giving them things in practice that allow them to show these kind of things to you has been really helpful. And then, yeah, like I said, just getting to know the athletes, like Nathan Barry, who just graduated from Bates last year, is NESCAC champion in the 100 back and 100 free, and then placed second at NCAA's in the 50 free, top 8 in all 3 of his events senior year at NCAA's, getting to know him throughout his 4 years. And it was COVID his freshman year. And I think even his sophomore year, like, still was a little bit shaky and couldn't really work with that group of athletes as much as any coach wanted to during that time. And then I even like his junior year, I think he still had some like nervousness with just me being his coach, because, he talked a lot with Peter during the recruiting process. And he knew Peter really well because his brother attended Bates and was there during the time that I wasn't. And so his brother got coached from Peter. But then, having that open mind and him getting to know me as a person and as a coach really helped. And then, senior year, he was one of those athletes where I said during taper time, you take this round easy, you need the rest. Whereas, Griffin Trigg over here, he needs to do this round hard. So yeah, just getting to know my athletes. And it also helped that I attended Bates, so I knew what they were going through. And even like a lot of the NESCAC schools are similar academically, and it's challenging. And so I think those athletes knew that, I struggled when I was a student at Bates, and I learned the hard way sometimes. And I shared my experiences with them and shared that you don't have to do this alone. Like, I tried my freshman year, and I tried like studying in my room by myself, and quickly learned that wasn't the way to go. And so they understood that, it's okay to struggle. And Vanessa did it. She figured it out, was a successful athlete during her time here at Bates. And I felt like I was a good resource for them to go to.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, there's so much good, good information to unpack there. I think one thing that stuck out going back a little bit was just how you keep going back to like the importance of the relationship between coach and athlete, and that ultimately leading to the success, right, on both ends. And so it's interesting to me how like it was in that second year where, okay, there's a little nervousness behind taking a hold of the sprint group, but ultimately that nervousness, and I found this in my own, coaching experience, it like pushes you, it helps you, like pressure makes diamonds, like it helps you to like really get into action. Like there's no more just sitting back and like kind of observing and okay, now you take the reins, like let's go. You got to figure this out. You got to get creative. You got to get to know your athletes more because now you're in charge. And so that's what that's what I picture is just that sort of not forced, but like, kind of forced in a way, like forced action to just be like, okay, now I'm taking over and I'm going to get to know my athletes. And I think another thing you mentioned that's really cool is just as a coach, not only coaching the sets, like not only distributing the workouts and creative or not, or, sprint or endurance based, whatever, but actually observing. That's another piece that I even work on consciously, in my own coaching is like, okay, I'm going to be watching each of my swimmers to the best of my ability because I want to see what's working for them and what's not. And like you said, that's when you're able to see, okay, we recruited this person as a breaststroker, but dang, they got a good butterfly and they got a good freestyle that can really be developed. And I think that's another really cool piece about just getting, really high level athletes into a collegiate program that maybe have thought they're sort of a one stroke wonder, but really it's like, wait a second, like you're, butterfly kick, your dolphin kick, your flutter kick is killer. Like, let's put that together with your stroke and, see you become NESCAC champion or, all American. So that's really cool to me.
Yeah. And they can't do that unless you give them opportunities in practice. Right. So like,
right.
And that part is like the creative part of instead of just doing back and forth swimming or, if I recruited her as a breaststroker and the whole main set is all breaststroke kind of thing, like how am I going to see her do anything else? So giving them opportunities to be able to kind of do other things that might not be comfortable for them, but they could develop in or that they never even thought that they would be good in. But yeah, something that I'd love to add to this is like, I give a ton of credit to Peter Casares because, here he was the head coach of a program that he was trying to build. And in my second year, he just handed me off half of the team. Like that's a huge risk, right? You're the head coach of the program. Everything falls on you. And so for him to give like that faith, put that faith in me, just meant a ton. And, with him just saying, yeah, you got this. I'll be here for you. Like that was huge. And, I don't know how I would have been as a coach if he didn't do that, if I was still kind of an assistant just by his side and, just tell him what the next set is or whatever it may be. But also giving your coaches that you have alongside you on deck opportunities to shine or, use their strengths for the team also helps out the program.
Yeah, no, totally. I think, like you said, in retrospect, that's kind of like a pivotal moment for sure for you to, have that sort of opportunity to take on the sprint group, but then also have the backing of the head coach. Like, hey, if you need anything, like I'm here, you got this. Like, I trust you. So definitely kudos to Peter Casares. Definitely do there. But yeah, and I'm sure you're going to see this now transitioning to this head coaching, phase. Like now you're going to be in that mentor role. So it's going to be, I'm sure, interesting for you to just see, okay, now I'm no longer sort of the assistant coach or, you were the associate head coach and very established at Bates, but now, I'm going to be mentoring younger coaches that are going to come under my wing. And, you'll have to probably, sort of, kind of grapple with the same thing. Like, okay, how much freedom do I give them? Or what am I noticing in their coaching tendencies that could be advantageous for us and different from my own coaching style? So I think that's another cool piece. Once you get to that level and now you're mentoring, sort of the next generation of assistant coaches, that's probably pretty cool. That'll be pretty cool too, I'm sure.
Yeah. I'll have to, because my assistant position is only 2 years, as you know, grad student position. It'll be interesting of what I will have that person in that position kind of delegated to, because they're only here for 2 years. Right. But it's also communicating with them, and like, I know Emmy's strengths right now, and she's really good at communicating with the athletes and just being there for them. And so I'll definitely use that and see what she's comfortable with doing, but also like push her a little bit into some uncomfortableness just to see how she can develop and whatnot. But yeah, and also my volunteer coaches, Skylar and Kim, like, I know in the past they've written workouts and given it off to the athletes in the group that they worked with. And I will totally, let them do that in that same mentality of like, hey, let's see what you wrote for this group, just to make sure that it's kind of the same kind of guidelines of what they've been getting, since they're only going to see these coaches a couple times a week. But I think it's important that these athletes get in front of as many minds as possible and learn from them in various ways.
Yeah, no, definitely. And so, you spent 11 seasons at Bates before taking this position at West. So, I just want to ask, like, what are some of your favorite moments or memories that really stick out, from your time with the Bobcats?
I could list so many like performances, and those are definitely great memories. I don't know if they're my favorite. Like, I always love it when someone looks up at the scoreboard and is just astonished with their time, but I think what really gets me to my core is when an alum or someone that just graduates says, my experience at Bates was what it was because of the swimming and diving program. And you were a big part of that, Vanessa. And I thank you. That kind of thing, like, really like touches my core of like, okay, like I had an influence and an impact during this student's 4-year experience. And, they enjoyed it for multiple reasons, but I had a little hand in there. And so that really is like a favorite memory for me, and something that I want these athletes at Wesleyan to say when they graduate, like, their experience in these 4 years at Wesleyan was because they were a part of the swim and dive program, and looking back on that and just like having that time be their best time while they were here.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. And I've heard coaches say that similar in the past, where it's like we could list, countless sort of like moments in terms of the accomplishments or surprising races. And there's no doubt that I even like sort of gave a smile when you said like seeing that surprise on the scoreboard, whether you're a swimmer or the coach. I think that's just like one of the best feelings from strictly a performance level in swimming. Just that like shock of like, wow, like I didn't know I could do that. I think that's just one of those like chilling moments. But certainly like you said, going back to relationships, like that as coaches, it's like we're not in it for the money or like the whatever it could be, like the power of the position. I think it's really just to be there as, at least for most coaches, like it's there for the mentorship. Like it's there to have a hand, like a guiding hand in, developing just young people's sort of like trajectory or life, or just like helping them. So yeah, I'm sure just getting messages like that from alumni saying, hey, you were really impactful for me in my time at Bates and the swim program that you helped develop. I think that's really beautiful. So that's great. And yeah, moving forward now to West, like this is your first year, season has kind of just started here. And so this is your first year as head coach of both the men's and women's program at Wesleyan University. So, in your first few months on campus, like, is there anything that about the community or the school or even the team that has kind of surprised you so far?
Not really, to be honest. So being at my last institution, which was in the same conference that Wesleyan is in, I've gotten to see the team on deck or at nationals, and I had a great relationship with the former coach, Peter Solomon, and had a lot of respect for him. So there hasn't been like anything super surprising within the team. The school is, a lot of the NESCACs, like I said earlier, pretty similar academically and whatnot. We've been meeting with the athletes one-on-one in this preseason just to kind of get to know them, have them get to know me, find out what their goals are for the year. And hearing what they're majoring in, I guess, has kind of surprised me, where a lot of them are double majors. And for me to think back of like being a double major, that would never cross my mind. And it's hard enough with everything that you have involved in being a student athlete, and then being a part of the little Ivies that the NESCAC is kind of named after. It's the academics are tough. And to hear that majority of these student athletes on this team are double majors, I was like, okay, like, let's go. They like to learn. And, they chose double majors because they wanted to, like, they wanted to take all these classes and to kind of double down on all these credits that they have to do. And I'm excited to work with them in the pool. That's going to show me that they want to learn to be a better swimmer and get faster. And a lot of the goals that I've been hearing of, like, I'm really close to making NCAAs. And so that's really exciting too. And I think they're going to gravitate really well to the workouts that I write, and they're going to understand the main sets and what the purpose is behind them. And that's kind of why I like coaching this level, especially within this conference. Like, these are smart people, and, I'm not just going to throw some sets at them and have them just do it and go through the motions. And there'll be days that they'll definitely do that, because that's sometimes what swimming requires. But for the most part, like, these athletes are going to know why they're doing what they're doing. And I think a NESCAC caliber athlete likes that, and they need that. Like, they want to know, like, oh, I'm doing these dolphin kicks off this last 25 of this set because it's going to help my 100 or my 200 at the end of the race, or I have to do this no breath because it's going to help me at the end of my race, or whatever it may be. But overall, I'm super excited to be here, and this university has a lot to offer. And so, like I said earlier, I was really comfortable at Bates. And so for me to pick up and move my daughter, a couple states away from what's been home for the last 11 years, and mostly for my entire life, it had to be something good. And so when I came here to interview for the job, when I met with the swimmers, I met I think 6 or 8 of them. I think it was 6. And that's kind of when I knew. So when I met with the swimmers, I was like, all right, these are people that I can see myself vibing with and coaching. And that's kind of when I was like, yeah, I want this job. I know I can do really great things here, and I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think, I mean, it's for those who are listening and maybe are unsure about similarities or differences between Bates or Wesleyan. Wesleyan is in the same conference as Bates, so it's in the NESCAC conference, which Vanessa alluded to as sort of the mini Ivies. And there's a lot of similarities between, like, it's not completely unfamiliar territory at all. So there are similarities, obviously completely different student body, and certain things are obviously going to be different between colleges or universities, but for the most part, it's a same standard of academics being 1 and then swimming being 1A, or whatever coaches want to phrase it as. But there's, I think, like you said, with the double majors that a lot of the student athletes have on the Wesleyan swimming and diving team. I think it's like you said, it's a really cool thing, because it just shows you that they're going to kind of approach swimming just as they would, sort of their academics. Like that mindset is very transferable. Their curiosity and their desire to learn and to engage, not only at sort of in the academic sort of atmosphere, but then also in the swimming sense, like is really beautiful to watch. And I certainly absolutely loved my time with many of those student athletes in the last 2 seasons. And I think it's a great place to be. So that's great. And I wanted to ask, what kind of impact, would you like to have on this Wesleyan swimming and diving team, moving forward? What kind of culture are you looking to build?
Yeah, I don't want to come in here and change too much. It doesn't seem like I need to. From having these conversations with these athletes, I think the culture right now within the team is really good. And I've been really impressed with the captains and the seniors in the program right now. And I think they're all on a mission, and the same mission of climbing the ranks of the NESCAC and getting faster. And so I have full faith and confidence that I will help them get there. I feel like I do a really good job of recruiting and getting to know those athletes at that level. Not only just getting to know my current athletes, but, getting to know each recruit and who they are as a person and what they can bring to the table here at Wesleyan. And so, it starts there when you want to build a program and kind of climb the ranks of the conference. So yeah, I'm looking to have fun and bring back the fun in the sport for some of these athletes. I think when, you get into that grind of swimming, you lose a little bit of the funness. And then I know COVID put a halt on a lot of these athletes and their kind of track of success. And so, yeah, I mean, utilizing the whole 50-meter facility as well. Like, I'm really excited about that. But working with these athletes, like I said before, they're smart and they want to improve, but also keeping Wesleyan traditions and having fun with the sport is really important to me. I don't need you to be a swimmer all the time. Like, you're a student and you're a student athlete, and you're also involved in the chess club or an a cappella group or helping out in the community. And I'm going to demand a lot from you, and the professor's going to demand a lot from you, and you might have a roommate that's demanding a lot from you. And so let's all do this together and figure out how to juggle your time here and be successful in both the classroom and the pool.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that. And then you mentioned recruiting. I just wanted to ask, when it comes to the recruiting end of your coaching responsibility, what does that look like for you when you're recruiting a student athlete to come to Wesleyan? Like, what are you looking for ultimately to sort of seal the deal and bring them on board to this new team that you're taking over?
Yeah. So when recruiting swimming and diving, it's easy, right? You can see times and score for a 6 dive meet. It's more than just that though, right? Like, I need to get to know the person. So yes, we are recruiting athletes that have times that can score in this conference. That is the only way that you can really build a program and climb the ranks in the NESCAC, is if you have times and athletes that have times that can score. But I also want good people in this program, and ones that are respectful, ones that love swimming and diving, ones that know how to work hard, that want to improve, but also help others around them improve. It's not just about themselves anymore. You're not on a club team. You're a part of a college team, and it's a team. Like, you do things together, and we're going to climb the ranks of the NESCAC together, and you're going to push through these practices together. And we all learned during COVID that a lot of us had to be by ourselves and train on your own. And that sucks, especially swimming. You don't want to swim and practice by yourself. Like even me nowadays, I struggle through that. I need someone next to me, and just being in a group is so much more fun and positive, and you work harder. So people that want to be a part of that kind of thing and want to be a part of something, like I want them to graduate from Wesleyan and say the program is better than when I arrived. And that could mean many different things, right? It could be in terms of, climbing the ranks of the NESCAC, or in terms of like, the team has fun with the sport and with each other, or, the overall GPA is higher than when I arrived, or the team is larger, and whatever it may be. But knowing that they had an impact in the program in one way or another of making it better is important to me. And I want them to want that and to feel that. And you can't feel it unless you're actually like doing something about it. Right. So whether you score points at a swim meet or you make the NESCAC team, you're still a member of this program. How are you making an impact? Like if you're not going to be on the travel squad, what are you doing in practices that helps make an impact? Are you a good teammate? Are you pushing people around you? Are you giving some high fives and fist pumps? Are you being difficult to the coach and your teammates? Like, are you a distraction in this program? Whatever it may be. But laying that out there with my recruits and saying, hey, this is what I'm looking for. This is the type of Cardinal that I want in this program and that we have in this program. And, if this isn't a place that you don't think that you can thrive and be a good person and a good teammate, then maybe this isn't the right place for you. And also one that likes being in a liberal arts education and located in Connecticut and, experiencing seasons and having winter here. Just being okay with all that stuff and wanting to challenge yourself in the classroom as well as in the pool. So there's a lot that goes into recruiting other than just like, oh, look at your times. Like you have to have those conversations, and it's multiple conversations. Like, as you know, it's a year. It's another job that you have to do. It takes time out of your day. Like I'm making phone calls on my ride home or on the weekends. Like you're never not working. And that's kind of what you have to do, but you have to do it in a way that still creates balance in your life that I've found and still keeps things healthy for everyone, myself and everyone around me too.
Yeah, no, I again, so much to unpack there. I love the way you put just I would say on the recruiting end and finding people for, to be future Cardinal members of the team. Like the message I'm hearing you say is like you're going to have a role on this team. Like just know if you're being recruited to Wesleyan swimming and diving, you're not just going to be another swimmer or diver that's, going to have like an impact on this team. Like, no, you're going to have a role. Like it's going to be a role as a teammate, as a contributor to our NESCAC team, a supporter or whatever it is. Like there's going to be a role for you here. And so you better expect that if you're going to want to come here. And then, yeah, I think I like the piece about it just being, there's many factors involved, like as easy as it is to look at times or, sort of diving metrics. Like, no, we need to have multiple conversations and eventually visits to campus if that's, accessible for you and that whole feeling out process of if this is a vibe, like if this is something that, you want to be a part of. So yeah, I just really like all of that. And so that's great. And I wanted to ask just last question here before we wrap up. Are you a fan of get out swims? And do you have any favorite that stick out?
I'm a fan when the time is right. I'm not a fan when the athletes ask us on the second day of our Florida training trip. Not the time and place yet. But yeah, one that I remember, I think I was volunteering on Bates's training trip that year, where I suggested, it could have been when I was volunteering one of those years or in my very beginning time, that everyone in that group get up and do a 50. I don't know if it was freestyle or their choice. And I think we gave them a certain time to go. And so they did it. But then I told Peter, have them do it again. And if they go faster, or if half of this group goes faster, then we can go. And he was like, wait, what? I was like, just trust me. Like, let's just try it. And he's okay. And so when we told them, like, nope, we're not done yet. We're going to do it again. And if half of you guys go faster than what you just did, then we can go and get out of practice. And a lot of them were like, what? Like, I just went as fast as I could. This was like the get out swim, and didn't think they could go faster. And so it was just one of those moments where it's like, just get up and try. You know, there were definitely some athletes that were like, all right, let's go. Like, let's do it. And so they got back up on the blocks, and sure enough, I think more than half of them ended up going faster. And swimming is just one of those sports where, like, you can't predict it. There's always like something crazy that happens with the body that you never thought possible. And, you know, you see it on the, time trial swims of when people tie for 8th place swim off kind of thing. And, you know, sure enough, like, the team was fired up then and got to go home. And I don't remember doing that much again after that. But yeah, get out swims were definitely, you had to pick them wisely because you don't really want a failed get out swim. And so just making sure that the times that you're expecting are reasonable. The athletes are in a mindset that can handle it and ready to do it. You haven't beat them up and they're exhausted kind of thing. But yeah, I think the athletes nowadays are definitely asking more for get out swims than in the past. I think there was a lot of fear of getting up on the blocks at the end of practice or in the middle of practice and expecting to go fast, or having to do it in front of your teammates. And then what happens if you fail kind of thing. But with the intention of like getting out early or having the hopes of like not doing the rest of the main set, it's a huge motivator for these athletes. So, yeah, there's definitely a good time and a place for get out swims for sure. But I feel like every Florida training trip has one thrown in there.
Yeah, the training trip definitely seems to be the time and place where, you know, the swimmer's so beaten up and it's just like, okay, this is the time where we can throw something at them. You know, we're in probably the warm climate, the Florida weather. People are, you know, just in a different environment that is gonna, I don't know, get them excited, get them, you know, energized and ready to go. So
yeah, well, and there's more motivation because then you can go back to the hotel and go to the beach or something.
Exactly. It's like, okay, we're done with the pool. We don't have to go back to the dorms or, you know, to the dining halls, to the library. Now we get to actually go to the beach, you know, be with all of our friends, our teammates, and just actually enjoy where we are aside from being at the pool.
Right.
So yeah.
There's definitely some times in the past couple of years where, you know, we would purposely on our weekly plan write in like, this could be a day for a get out swim, and we might like whisper it to a captain or something where, you know, hey, why don't you guys bring this up after warm up kind of thing. But I also remember a practice where it didn't make sense for a get out swim, but it made sense for them to like get out of practice early. And so I wrote this practice where they did warm up. And then after warm up, they had like this challenge where I forget what the first challenge was, but they needed to do it. If they didn't do it, then they had to go on to the next set. And so they did the next set. And then the next challenge, I remember this, was, you know, standing on the bulkhead, and each person had to throw their goggles and see if they could get them to wrap over the flags. Right. We've seen this before. And so they're all lined up on the bulkheads, and each one at a time is throwing the goggles. And we're telling them, like, no, you can't break the nose piece. So you're making a long line. That's cheating. It's got to be a legit like goggles, and you got to get them to hang on the flags. And so we're going down like lane 1. Nope. None of them could get it to stick. Lane 2. Nope. And then I think in the beginning of lane 3, one of the athletes get them to stay on the flags. And I thought the bulkhead was going to break with how excited they were and jumping up and down and like, all right, you did it. And I think it happened to be an athlete that, wasn't the fastest on the team, wasn't always like scoring points at NESCACs, but now all of a sudden everybody's so excited for her because they can get out of practice or out of the next set. And they're done for the day. And that was kind of like a get out swim without actually like having to swim, because it didn't make sense for them to do anything off the block. They were just tired, beat up kind of thing.
That's great. Yeah. Again, I can picture like the excitement and the atmosphere around something like that. Certainly the goggle toss to get it wrapped around the flags is something that I feel like you do by the time you're like a young age group or just trying to fool around before getting in the water. So
Right.
I think that's like the little kid inside of you just trying to get it on the flags, and we can do that at any age. So that's really cool. Well, that's great. Yeah. Well, if there's anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up, now's the time to do so. But I truly enjoyed just getting to know more, about your swimming trajectory, your coaching background, and yeah, and I'm just super excited to follow Wesleyan swimming and diving moving forward. Like I said, it's got a special place in my heart, and I'm even going to hope to try and make some meets here and there, and so yeah, I'm just really excited. I'm excited for you. I'm excited for the team, and yeah.
Thank you. I think that is the word of the vibe of the team right now too. Because I'm really excited, and I know my recruits can hear that whenever I talk to them. And I know these athletes are really excited as well. So it's going to be a fun year and years to come for sure. So definitely stay posted. But yeah, I mean, I've had so many great mentors in my life, and the NESCAC is such a great conference. And actually all the female coaches in the NESCAC have our own little group chat, or the NESCAC girl gang group chat. So we reach out to each other often, and it's just a special conference to be in. And Wesleyan is a great school to attend. And within that swim program, it's going to be a lot of fun. So thank you for having me on this. I've enjoyed listening. I've listened to all your other podcasts that you've had so far. I always love hearing about swimming and D3 swimming that you've touched upon. So that's been awesome, because, you can listen to swim podcasts, but they're, Brett Hawk or something talking to a Division I or professional coach. And you can definitely have it relate to you and your athletes, but it's not quite the same, So listening to your other podcasts of some great coaches has been inspiring, and I'm really honored that I had this opportunity to be on here. So thank you, Seamus.
Yeah, absolutely, Vanessa. Thank you. And yeah, I hope to just, continue sharing stories, within Division III and beyond too. I think there's a space for these stories. And like you said, it impacts you, and it's enjoyable to listen to, and to, yeah, just hear everyone's different stories. And so that makes me feel really good. And yeah, well, good. So we're good to go.